Kia ora koutou. Welcome back to another week's episode of School Briefs. Slightly delayed by 24 hours. And
We like to keep people waiting, isn't that how it works? It makes a heart go fonder or something like that. I don't know.
It was a busy day clearing the inbox of all of the emails going, where on earth is School Briefs?
People don't know what to do with themselves on a Sunday night, Monday morning.
No. As a way of apologising, we've got Sarah with us. Sarah, it's fantastic to have you with us this week. How are you?
Kia ora, good, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's been a bloomin' busy one, that's for sure. I've been sitting here trying to put it all in chronological order and sort of struggling because there's so much that actually went on in the last 7 days. So lots to talk about.
Let alone people actually doing their job and teaching in the school.
I know.
That's what STEM ends for. What happened first in the week, Claire?
Well, I thought it was quite interesting. We had a bit of a song and a dance happening across the internet, and particularly across National Party MPs and talking about their specific electorates, and a lot of talk about walls going up and what's the walls go up? I can't even remember the second part of the line. It annoyed me so much. I've cleared it out of my brain.
And I think it was walls going up and hope coming down. It was something like that.
It's one of those really interesting things. I totally get that some people exist in open plan spaces that aren't well designed, that are acoustically problematic and haven't been designed effectively. I also understand that some people exist in schools where maybe they haven't adapted their pedagogical approaches and structure and organisations to make the most of those flexible teaching spaces. I think what has ground my gears as someone who runs a modern learning environment secondary school that gets incredibly good outcomes for our young people is the bandying about of the term failed experiment, and that we saw a lot of selling of, these walls that are going to cure this failed experiment of MLEs. And we all know that it's a lot more nuanced than that. There are indeed some spaces that aren't well designed and need to be revisited and fixed. But actually, there's a whole lot of potential. And, I look to our particular school, Albanese Senior High School, and we've been doing a lot of reflecting recently on what we do and why we do it and the outcomes we achieve. And, we get some of the highest grades and outcomes for young people in North Shore, Auckland, as one of the only modern learning environments in the area. So if that's what a failed experiment looks like, we should have some more failed experiments because they get great outcomes for our young people. So, yeah, it's just one of those political positioning messaging that gets a little bit frustrated. I saw there was someone shared a great post up on Disrupt Ed or Aotearoa Educators Collective about another school that I think was clarifying. Did you share that one, Sarah? Someone shared it about clarifying the terms?
Yes. That's Te Ao Marama School in Hamilton, brilliant school, and they are a innovative learning environment, modern learning environment, and they do some fantastic things in their school. And I kind of think that there's this theme that sits in behind a lot of the stuff we're seeing, right? And it's the simplification of things. And I think when
binaries and singular ways of doing things
in open plan, right? Where it was it was a simple version when we're talking truly open plan, which is different to our ILEs, where we've got this problem. And I know a lot of the schools I was in at the time, it was a role growth issue. We didn't have enough space. So we'll knock a wall down. We can deal with more.
Move into the library and repurpose it as a series of teaching spaces.
A simple solution to a problem that was ostensibly a property problem, that then became a pedagogy problem and a management problem and so on. And so now that simple problem solution to the problem didn't work. So we'll bring in another simple solution, which is to build the wall back again.
Yeah.
And we're not looking at the complexity, or certainly not an understanding of the complexity of teaching and the complexity of our young people and teacher need as well. There's all of that in there. So there's just not a willingness to accept that this is a complex job and a complex setting that needs much more clever answers than whether you're going to build a wall or bust it down.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm typically a half glass half full kind of guy, but not in this instance. I mean, I think that the money for walls are a proxy for the fact that what they didn't like was that MLEs talk about a curriculum that's student-centred, about building agency, around problem solving, creativity.
Project-based learning gets lumped in with it. Yeah,
that's right. And so if you really want to ram forward a kind of teacher-directed pedagogy of everyone in lines, kids don't talk, teacher at the front of the class is the fountain of all knowledge. That's why you've got an issue with open plan learning. And they try to conflate the two. Claire, I think you were exactly right around it hasn't worked in a lot of cases to just retrofit old buildings. But for me, this is what happens when you've got a pedagogy that is led by the grassroots and not funded and supported properly by the Ministry of Education. You see some bad practice emerging. You see some loud classes. But this idea that it was a kind of failed experiment, I don't know. For me, it's just...
I mean, they left them adrift as well. Like I did research a couple of years ago as part of my Masters of Education dissertation. I looked at community perceptions of secondary innovative learning environments, and it was trying to understand, what the community perceptions were and what informed them and what could potentially change them. And it was you didn't have to look very far to see that brief window of even the purpose-built ILEs were built, and then they panicked, and then they were abandoned very quickly. Yeah. So there was no ongoing support and professional development that needs to sit around those spaces. And so for those of us that were in ILEs where there were principals and leaders that really believed in the potential, they made sure the professional development happened. Like I think of Sarah at Stonefields, Barbara Kavanagh, who was in Albany Senior High School before me, and Mori when he was in Hobsonville Point Secondary School. But it was actually left to those school leaders to make that happen. And we know when it's just left to them that and not resourced properly, and that stuff is sort of set up to fail. But really proud that, one of the schools that is making those spaces work, and a very well-designed space.
I also wanted to just acknowledge the extra work that comes on principals and leaders of these schools. I work in an amazing school in the South Island that at a primary school level that is a modern build, and it's one of the best schools I've been in the country. And the work that goes in that school, not only to teach, effectively, but every time an announcement comes out to have to defend the school again.
I've been doing that for the last 12 years, whether it was at Hobsonville Point or Albany.
This takes your energy away from your core business, which is to be in front of kids and do the best for the community. And the minister sideswipes with these announcements or these one-off quips about, failed experiments, and then not realising schools have to meet parents at the gate on Monday morning to defend these statements and reassure the community that it's all going to be okay.
Yeah. And I'm going to do a plug here. Check out Albany Senior High School's Facebook page or Instagram pages. We do some fantastic myth busting.
One thing that I'm quite keen now that it has been announced is actually exactly what happens in these spaces. I'm curious as to whether or not we're going to find that funding has gone into schools that actually don't need to have any.
But maybe the Seneca Mises, but maybe need some new sports equipment or something like that, or kapahaka.
Because it's not actually clear around the sort of like who's really checking off, because this is one of those things that any school can apply to get some walls refitted. We did make some jokes about having some walls on wheels that we could do some exciting things with, but we didn't quite follow that up.
I wonder if we're going to see some schools using the money for more maths textbooks, and then they can use the textbooks to create some walls between classrooms.
Yeah.
That's really good thinking, creative thinking there, Liam.
A little too creative though, Liam, for that sort of ideology though, isn't it?
I love it.
And talking about creative thinking, we had some interesting announcements come out from NZPF this week. So we heard that there was a bit of a call from NZPF for a curriculum and assessment centre that might help us navigate through the sort of the pendulum swings and roundabouts of government to government. Liam, have you had a little bit of a look at that and what's been proposed?
Yeah, and so NZPF, along with unions and other sector bodies, over the last year have been kind of looking at models around the world that really champion independence. And full credit to NZPF, they've gone and packaged this idea in something.
Yeah, I had a look over the 7 papers. Well worth a look.
Yeah, and I think they've probably got their timing right for the launch of it coming into the election and really wanting to kind of capture opposition parties. They're in that kind of weird period where they want the whole thing to be apolitical, but you've clearly got a government that won't kind of give it any
buy into that
time of day, because they've actually spent their first couple of years building the most politicised curriculum and assessment centre. But effectively, what it is looking at is not necessarily taking away the power from a government through the ministry to set the direction.
No, because they would still set direction, wouldn't they? Yeah,
that's right. But they are talking about the implementation of it being run independently. I mean, it is one of those ideas that I think we should probably get them on to talk a little bit further about. But they have definitely met the moment, because we know that the sector is calling out really clearly for some type of independence in the curriculum and assessment space. The other thing I like about what they've done is that they haven't gotten into the detail about it as well. I mean, that's the stuff that is going to need to be worked through. But they're talking about the role of principals, teachers, employers, very similar to the Irish model in the way that we go about.
And they get that there's actually a paper on that particular example, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, I think we should totally have them on to talk more specifically around how they see it working in operation. But I think the timing's great for it.
And Sarah, you work with 100 and look at sort of some of the stuff that's happening across Europe. Is this something we're seeing around different jurisdictions? I know they gave the example of Ireland. But do you see the jurisdictions trying to achieve this?
I think that there's, I'm not 100% up on curriculum delivery. I work more at that space of where are we going to look at the broader benefits of it? It's more sort of an ideological / innovative approach. And I do think, though, that there are some similarities and crossovers here where leaning into voice from the sector, again, trusting professionals, saying, what is it that you need and how can we support you? And looking broader at this rather than the siloed approach, which we're seeing at the moment. And that's something that we're seeing a lot in really forward-thinking jurisdictions, and also that integrated approach. So again, we're not kind of going, well, you teach this and you teach that, and it's really looking at the cohesive whole.
And it's a durable curriculum vision that actually goes from zero to tertiary sort of thing.
Zero to tertiary, we're seeing a lot of. I know Scotland shifted to that; they've gone through it for a complete curriculum all the way through. Actually, surprisingly, modelled on Te Whāriki, the younger years. So we've had jurisdictions looking at us, which has been the really frustrating thing as someone that works in that international space. I need to see that that's going to turn around and they're going to start looking somewhere else very shortly. So, it's definitely. I think the biggest thing though is that there's a real focus on how are we supporting the whole well-being and the purpose for community, right? Where does education sit with community? And that's definitely a conversation
and that's where we've had that language flourishing come into a lot of international curriculum discussions.
Yeah. And there's a lot of research coming through around that now. I know that 100's involved in a big focus on flourishing at the moment. And I know that the UNGA, the UN General Assembly, are looking at that next month in New York, and the OECD. And so these are big hitters looking at this, and they will be influencing. We know they influence jurisdiction. We know they influence philanthropy and the work that they do in developing countries. So it does trickle down to the local decision making as well.
Yeah, and I think what I really liked about the NZPF announcement is how nicely it complemented a particular vision document that came out this week.
Oh, hey, can I just...
Oh, yes, yeah, no, you're there, Liam. You say what you need to say.
One is, my understanding is that the Greens have said in favour of a kind of independent curriculum and assessment.
Yeah.
But the other one was Andy Foster at an education forum I emceed. He was not shy in coming forward.
He keeps forgetting what party he's in, though, doesn't he, Andy?
I know, that's right.
Yeah.
He's got a kind of...
Is Andy the independent NZF member?
Yeah. Still nothing from Labor. Still nothing from Labor yet. But given the launch of their election slogan today, I think it's just round the corner.
Now sounds better.
But it's happening. It's happening. But you were talking about our launch.
Oh, yeah, and also touching on something that Sarah said, which was that other jurisdictions look to Aotearoa. One of the real highlights, you've heard us here already talking about the fact that we launched our vision, a vision for education in Aotearoa, New Zealand last Thursday. Shout out to Dr. Claire Coleman for authoring that on behalf of the Aotearoa Educators Collective. We had a fabulous launch at the University of Auckland, MC perfectly by Stephen Lethbridge, but we were also joined by international guest Anthony Mackay, who works with jurisdictions around the world, co-founded GALP, works with every entity and all entities emceeing, and appears to he's a man of the world who works with pretty much every jurisdiction that you can think of. And it was really heartening to have him there talking to the vision document and reflecting on how aligned it was with a lot of that work that's happening globally around the flourishing space and looking after the whole student. But I think what was really lovely was having him remind us that regardless of how we might be feeling in the weeds here in Aotearoa right now, that we are still looked to globally as an aspirational space in terms of education. And, as Sarah said, that might change in the near future if we can't correct course in terms of where we're going. But, it also, I actually came away feeling quite hopeful from that presentation because there was a lot of reminders about the agency we have and the fact that nothing that is happening at the moment can take away historically the foundations that our education lays on, whether it's Te Kaukahitanga or Kahikatea or the best evidence synthesis or the key competencies or Te Mataiaho 2023, that stuff is still there. It's still in the very foundations of everything we do in our schools. And I think as much as we might feel like we're sort of being a bit battered by reform at the moment, that remains, and actually our agency remains, and well, it does at the moment anyway. But we do have the capacity to do the right thing for our young people on a daily basis. So it was. If you haven't checked out the vision document, it's available on our Substack, available on our website for download. I also recommend, if you've got a bit of time, check out the presentation. We shared, I believe yesterday, was it, Liam, or was it this morning, last night? The recording of the launch on Thursday. I don't know about you guys. I felt it was uplifting, but it was also quite calming because it wasn't a shocking document. Like I sort of said, do I feel a little bit underwhelmed? I went, no, this isn't underwhelmed. This is the fact that we've delivered something that hasn't spiked my cortisol levels, which is unusual in the education space at the moment. We're so used to our cortisol levels being spiked by this announcement and that announcement. To have something delivered that actually just felt right. Was nothing's perfect. We look at it now and we can think of things we could do differently and have done differently. But I don't know about you guys. I feel like it was a hopeful document.
I think one of the things that we don't do so well in New Zealand is put a stake in the ground and say, this is who we are. We constantly look overseas and we look to where can we do it? Who can we copy? What can we do? And I think when you look at jurisdictions that are doing really well. It's they do define, like I'm thinking of the Finnish vision for education to 2045 or something, I think, and they really lean into, firstly, their values as Finns for a start and what it means for their society. But we share, our vision document shares very similar things to something like that document, but through an Aotearoa lens. And I think that's...
And apologetically bicultural.
Why should we not, put a stake in the ground and say, no, actually, we have everything that we need here. We don't need to be looking overseas all the time and comparing ourselves. When actually, I think New Zealand, people look to us. I know when I'm speaking with people overseas and I've started to share a bit about what's been happening and some of the frustrations I've felt, the first thing they'll say is, oh, no, not New Zealand. No, and there's this genuine grief that we're now having to defend the very thing that the rest of the world has looked to for so long. So I think that the vision's really good. I know what you mean about this sort of that moment of where you think, is this it? This feeling. And it is because we're being pulled from this way to that way in the sensationalist stuff. I think what it is just that we know what we need.
Yeah, and a measured middle ground is actually all we're asking for. We're not asking for anything radical.
Yeah,
not really.
Yeah.
Your comments earlier about whether or not we're going to be able to kind of hold on to where we've come from. I think that's quite right, but I'm like desperately aware that relies on educators in the system to keep that kind of spark alive, because there is a time period in which that does start to dwindle away. And I am so hoping that we just don't end up with this kind of AI cookie cutter curriculum alive and well. And that's my fear of a kind of second term government, is that they haven't finished in the curriculum space by any stretch until they know at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning what page of a writing textbook somebody's going to be doing.
Yeah.
But the bit though that you mentioned around the kind of niceness of the vision is that I don't think it's complex what we have put together, because what we have set out
and by design.
We haven't wanted to have like a super controversial plan around where we need to be by 2030. We've just taken the parts that are unique about Aotearoa and started to talk about a vision for education for the type of young people that we want to have leaving the school system. And that big focus from our end has been about how we start to build that common language across the profession, so that we can start to sing with one voice about what are the type of characteristics that we want. And so in some ways, I'm glad that they're not kind of radical or shocking. They're just that kind of middle ground thing. I think the bit that probably does stand out is kind of how far away it is from a curriculum that is just pulled from what's going on in the UK and states of America. That's the kind of shocking distance that we've got. A bit that I am looking forward to now, though, is what we do with it from this point, because I'll tell you what, the education sector is
it's only just begun. This is the beginning of a conversation. Yeah. We need a slogan. What's our slogan?
Something about doing it now or something.
Beginning.
But I mean, the education sector is not short of kind of really nice, well-meaning documents that sit on shelves. And I think the exciting part where you actually could start to get a little bit more radical is when we start to bring about some kind of policy discussion papers based on that vision. What does that mean for initial teacher education or curriculum and assessment? I mean, it's quite nice, the NZPF's paper. You could see it slotting quite nicely with our vision.
100%. And so I sort of thought like there was sort of like a, we were some of the what and they were some of the how in terms of the constructs you need to enable a vision like this to be enacted. Like you need all of the pieces, and that's where I'm looking forward to seeing where the discussions go in the very near future. So it's interesting. So fantastic congratulations to everyone involved. All of us pat ourselves on the back. But, big thank you to Claire and Rose and for Stephen's work on Thursday morning.
Can I just say something about, sorry to interrupt, but can I just say something about Rose? Because I think she made a really lovely point at the launch. And if people do tune into the recording, hopefully they'll see that bit. And she talked about the power of hope, which I want to pick up on. And she shared some of the essays that she's reading at the moment. And I really do believe, and I spoke with Derek Wenmouth about this too, is that I'm again a bit like the glass half full, where I think we're actually in this messy moment of where things have to feel yuck and horrible in order for something good to come out of it. And I really do think we've gone too far in New Zealand to go back, even though there are powers that would like us to go back. The all the analogies out the gate, metaphor, everything like that, for the fact that they can't bring it back. So for me, that's the hope that I live in, is that we're getting too far, and really it's just we've got to get through this mucky bit, and hope's going to get us through that. It sounds all lovely but that's.
Oh no! I was down in Wellington on Monday and Tuesday last week as part of the BPTA Tiratira Anō working group because of the chapter that I'm writing as part of that, looking at the impact of the new reforms, the qualification reforms. And I was there with Dr. Therese Ford and Bruce Jepson, and having them in the group and everyone talking in terms of how far we've come with Te Tiriti and how far we've come as a country with our commitment, that whilst we can feel frustrated at the loss of Te Mākaiaho as it exists in 2023, there's no chance of that stuff being lost. And it's sort of like, on one part of me goes, no, we can be confident that we're going to do it regardless. But at the same time, we should never accept stuff being undone that should never have been undone at the same time. I come back to the system reform bill. So much of what we're talking about that feels yucky is the system reform bill. Yeah. And I think that's something that we need to come back to again and reflect on in terms of really understanding this is not personal. This is not about a person. This is about a system reform bill that was designed to absolutely change our education system in one fell swoop, because a lot of it is woven into that particular bill. Hey, we had a couple of other announcements. We'll just gloss over them and then we'll talk a little bit about today's humdinger, which I'm not really sure if it was an announcement or not. But we had 21st, we had a statement, a press release around new specialist classrooms. Not really an announcement. That was money that was already in the budget, wasn't it? The new specialists.
When you said 21st, I thought you were going to give somebody a shout out who was celebrating their 21st birthday.
Happy 21st.
Like, to speak to you. What about
we could be like what was the countdown? Casey, whatever his name is, in the countdown. Didn't he give birthday shout outs? We could be just like that. Let us know if you want a birthday shout out on AEC School Briefs. Just drop us a line. May or may not remember to do it. Anyway, on the 21st, there were new specialist classrooms announced. Also, Friday, they slipped in Phase 5, the history curriculum, draft curriculum, and Te Ao Māori. So it's going to be interesting to watch those two and get a bit of a sense from the experts in terms of how they've landed. I know there was some initial misgivings around how things were glossed over or framed. I don't pretend to be any expert in the field of either of those two curriculum documents. So if you are and you've got some hot takes for us, please reach out. We'd love to hear some expert sort of insights. I know Dr. Claire Coleman will be running some curriculum webinars through AEC that you can dip into as well. But can we just talk for a minute, before our time is up, about the press release that came out today, the stand-up. Did any of you watch the live stand-up for the, it was said in the press release that it was the government moves to ban under 16 from social media. We realised on closer reading that it was no such thing. It was the National Party moving to ban under 16 from social media, because it appears they're the only party backing this particular bill. But did any of you watch it?
No, but I can share with you what my teenage children said when they watched the headlines tonight on One News. It was just a laughable thing to them. They just said, Mum, they'll never get it done. They said that, kids get around it anyway. It was just not a thing because, and as I said, off air before, my 16-year-old said, Mum, they banned meth, didn't they? And look how that worked out. They banned alcohol, didn't they? And look how that worked out.
Can you test for social media in the water like you can?
No, I don't know.
You know, like will they be checking the drainage for social media runoff? Because I'm wondering how they're going to check that. Now, I mean, to be fair, I get what they're trying to do, and I actually, admire the fact that in the framing of the bill today, they were talking about going beyond simply banning. The reality is, we already know 4 out of 5 get around it in Australia. It simply hasn't worked because the platforms don't reinforce it. I can understand people's misgiving around the impacts of social media on some of our young people, and I get that there is reason for doing this, but I've never seen such a slick, it was really interesting. We had the Prime Minister front up, talk about it, call out to the B416 crew who are, the very wealthy group of philanthropists who are pushing this particular bill. And then we had the minister come up and do a pitch and then play the little mini documentary. I don't know if you've seen the clips that are floating around on social media at the moment. It's a little bit ironic. There's a whole lot of teenagers talking about social media on social media. And I sort of, part of me goes, what are we, does this sit well with me? I don't know. But it was really interesting. It was a real, we know our minister comes from a reality TV background, and it was a very carefully manufactured framing of trying to convince people to get on board a bill, which when you read more closely had a lot of unanswered questions. I think Labor had 79 unanswered questions about the bill. That's why they weren't on board with it. We know that New Zealand First, ACT Party don't support it. We know that this has been pretty ineffectual in Australia. There's a bit of an air of virtue signalling when it comes to social media bans. It's not to say we shouldn't be trying, and it's not to say we shouldn't be doing stuff around algorithms, regulating I think we should be going hard on regulating the platforms. I think that's where the harm is. It's the fact that they have unfettered access to our young people and the way they design their algorithms and the way they, design social media to be addictive. So don't get me wrong. I think there is absolutely areas of harm and addiction and all of the rest of it. And I applaud our minister for wanting to address a problem. I'm just not convinced that this is it.
Political context here is really important because this is something that they spoke about really early on in the term, but they have left their run far too late.
This is not going to go past a first reading, is it? How many weeks have we got left?
Well, no. I think that what happened today was 100% about the election campaign because it is no chance.
So electioneering rather than about the bill.
I think I think it's very similar to some of the messaging that we had to justify things like the hour a day of literacy and numeracy and things like that. We manufacture, and I'm not saying that we don't have a crisis with social media, but we put out into the public the problem, and we're here to solve the problem. So vote for us, because we simplify the issue. Social media is killing our kids. We're going to ban it. Vote for us. It's, to try and simplify it down, and they don't capture the complexity of it because, yes, there is a problem with social media, but also social media is a lifeline for some children as well.
Our at-risk young people, it's where they find connection and community,
It's not as simple as
some of them.
it all for everyone, and we'll have healthier kids, because it could very well give the opposite effect for some children.
So, and we saw that out of Australia, didn't we? We saw psychologists and doctors coming out.
So
in their open letter.
It's 100% a bid for votes, because what's going to happen is if you're a parent, you're going to watch that and go, God, I can't get my kid off TikTok and they're being bullied and all the rest, and they're going to ban it. So, we'll come in. And no one has the time to look at the detail of this, which is they don't have that cross-party support.
Right.
They're not going to have time to get it in. But they'll get the vote to say, well, if they get, that's the thing I'm voting
on. It's a good idea. On the surface.
Well, I mean, I think it is about wedging Labor in the campaign, because I suspect Labor's kind of ideologically quite split on this. I I think there would be an appetite for it, but I think there'll be some really sensitivity around some of the vulnerable communities, as you have just said. But if you look beneath the headline, what they're actually proposing is wafer thin, because they're talking about fines of these large social media companies. We just don't have the regulatory framework to be able to do that.
I think they would laugh in our face.
Australia can't do it, right? They're saying now they're upping the fines because the big corporations are just taking the mickey. So, if Australia can't do this,
and if you can't get the equivalent of the Paris Accord, and even that came unstuck, it
is absolutely 100%. Vote for us. We'll look after your kids and we'll get them off social media. And I'm actually really frustrated with that, because there is a piece there that has to be addressed.
Yeah.
That we do know the harm that's causing many children in terms of their social media exposure. We see that as educators in terms of their engagement and things. So there is a piece there, but we're taking that, we're simplifying it down, and then it's actually going to not address the real issues underneath, and there's going to be more vulnerability there.
Yep.
Can I also give a shout out to I love every time they wheel out because there was a bit in the introduction from our Prime Minister about how, they said the cell phone ban couldn't work, but look at our schools. Children are out in the playgrounds. I always think of like the hills are alive with the sound of music. I think about kids spinning around in fields as a result of Now they are out playing in the fields.
Yeah.
Hey, I know that we are going to have to go soon, but I've got an olive branch that I can extend. The U-turn of climate change in the curriculum. Without getting too far into the details,
that's our bouquet that we've got to offer.
Turns out it wasn't ideological. It was just some type of an administrative mistake within the Ministry of Education, because the draft that the minister saw, it had it there. Somehow it got deleted without the minister knowing, and now the minister has made sure that it is coming back in. And so
I hope someone is going through the log of changes on that document and finding out who's got the red pens.
Didn't she also say, though, that she was just going to consult some climate change experts as well, which I'm pleased she's doing after the drafts have come out? Because why would you?
This is an olive branch, Sarah. We're sorry. Thank you.
I'm struggling with that. I do. I mean, it's very kind. But
Hey, look, outdoor education is back. Climate change is back.
Yeah.
Before we know it, NCA is going to be retained. I know it. I can feel it in the gut.
But Tatiriti, where will we see Tatiriti?
Tatiriti's going to make a comeback for Christmas.
Yeah, here's the hope. Here's the hope.
We believe.
Yeah.
Children are our future. Okay, so that was a great 37 minutes. Sorry, people. We're making up for the fact that we're a little bit late by going on a little bit too long. And remember, if you want that birthday shout out, just drop a note below and we'll make sure that happens. Make all your dreams come true at AEC School Briefs. Hey, Liam.
Thanks for joining us. Have a good week, everybody. Ka kite.
Have a great week.